Listener discretion is advised. 17 Days of Chaos. By Chad Fulks. Chapter 4. Things get even worse.
We held our breath. By now the van must be on every cop's list. We knew that. We'd been on the run for days now. It was Tina's ID that had gotten us into motel rooms, but that would be leaving a trail. Then there were the stolen checks and the blazing car. James Hawkins had certainly talked, and Samantha, I longed for her to be all right, would. Our time had come. But no, they just walked into the rest area without looking at us. "Let's get out of here," the others shouted. But I knew better. I had driven these highways since I was 13, and it's better to have the police ahead of you instead of behind. We entered Virginia. And there we had fresh problems. 80 miles into the state, I spotted cameras. They were there to catch speeders. They were also there to check license plates. And we hadn't changed ours. There was no way we could stay on the interstate as far as the coast, so I turned us onto back roads all the way to North Carolina. I was bushed, and for a moment I fell asleep at the wheel. I couldn't carry on. There was more than tiredness, it had been days since we ate. Tina drove us to a 24-hour store for food. And no sooner were we out than we began smoking more meth. We were so high that Brandon began seeing things. He was growing crazier than ever. He pulled the gun out of his pants, cocked it, and started shouting, "I'm gonna kill you all. I'm gonna kill you all." He pointed the gun at Tina and Andrea. Tina started crying and went back to arguing with him. "Shut up," I told her. But that made it worse. He pointed the gun at Tina's head. I screamed at him to put it away. And, as meek as he had been crazy, he laid the gun in his lap. There was no chance he wouldn't go back to being berserk again. It's not easy to get a gun off a crazy person, and I had to pick my moment. Otherwise he'd kill Tina and Andrea and maybe me. My chance came at a rest area on the border of the two Carolinas. Tina and Andrea went to the bathroom. Brandon wanted to abandon them and drive on. We'd started as two, we'd get on better as two. "And who's going to get us the motel rooms if we do that?" I demanded. He turned in half-sulk and took his eyes off me and the gun. I punched him hard and took the gun as he reeled back. He swore at me as he came round. We got into a row. I asked him how else I was going to get the gun off him and end this crazy story. "You want to go your own way?" I asked. "That's fine by me. Just step out of the van, do whatever you want." His courage only went so far, however. He sat there fuming, defeated, and waited for Tina and Andrea. They sighed audibly when they saw I'd taken the gun. We reached the coast at North Myrtle Beach. It boasts that it is the birthplace of the shag dance, which became the official state dance of South Carolina in 1984. Who knew that any state had an official dance? We rented a hotel room for 2 nights. The others were relieved that I knew the town and where to hustle. I looked for beer, but you can't get beer in Myrtle Beach on a Sunday. Bizarrely, you can buy wine, and back at the hotel we set about drinking it. It was when we'd had a glass or two that we heard a fight outside. I went to look. I found a black guy fighting with a white woman, slugging it out. I waded in and pulled them apart. I trusted that the police weren't going to come to something as everyday as that. The worst was that they'd drive by and notice it, but we were away from the road. Brandon came out to watch. When I got them apart, he asked the guy for weed. He looked at Brandon and said, "Give me a moment to get home and cleaned up and I'll be back." It took him all of 10 minutes, and there he was, less disheveled and knocking on our door. He came in with a blunt. We laced it with meth and smoked it. The guy studied Andrea and then Tina. "Listen, you girls," he said after a moment, "I'm a pimp. You two looking for business, you let me know, right?" And then, after another thought and looking at Andrea, "You want to suck him off while I watch? It's worth a sack of weed to you." They needed little encouragement, and off they went. This was all too much. I had to shut it all down. We didn't need a stranger in our room, a stranger whose intentions we didn't know. Brandon passed out. I went for a shower and Tina followed. I took $100 out of his wallet, she said quietly, "'cause he wasn't helping pay for anything." "Yeah, and he's gonna flip out soon as he notices. You thought of that?" She shrugged and changed the subject. "You gotta get rid of Brandon, Chad, you know that? Really, you've got to." But I decided against. Again. We laid down and talked for an hour of getting a place in Florida, having a baby. But as good as it sounded, I knew better. It wasn't going to work. Tina sees the world through rose-tinted glasses. I woke next morning to screaming from Brandon. His gun was gone. I got up to calm his nerves only for him to accuse Tina of stealing it. I separated them and took her into the bathroom. I demanded to know where she'd put it. She swore she never had it, which was true, because when we came out of the bathroom, There was Brandon with the gun pointed at us. "Bitch," he began shouting. "You give me my $200 or I'll kill you." I stood in front of her. "Calm down," I shouted. "Look, let's drive to the ocean. You can see it and smell it, and then, whatever we make, you can keep. There'll be cars all along the front. People at the beach. They'll leave their purses and credit card. They don't want to take them on the sand. Easy pickings, man." He was a different man, a crazy man. Every time he picked up that gun, he thought he was bulletproof. He felt powerful. But in time, he could see logic, and he put it down again. There was a gap in that logic, though. It was winter, and there would be neither people on the beach nor cars along the front. "This is just fucking stupid, man," Brandon moaned. "This ain't no good. We gotta break into houses. That's what I know about." I wasn't keen, but we did need to pay back the dollars that Tina had taken. We started looking for houses that stood alone. They'd be easier to break into. Our drive took us as far as Conway, where I used to live. There I knew where to look. And since Brandon was the break-in artist, we could stay outside, looking out for him, using the walkie-talkie he'd bought with the camo clothing. He was in their way too long, 20 minutes, before coming out with just $20 worth of Walmart jewelry. "You took that risk for just $20 of that junk?" I chided him. He said he'd do better next time and knocked on the door of the neighboring house to be sure nobody was at home. When nobody was, I walked round the house and opened the back door with a screwdriver. And this time we did better than trash jewelry. This house belonged to Carl Jordan's son, a gun collector, and he wasn't too careful about protecting his guns. We came back out with 20 of them, and we were looking for more when someone came down this dead-end road and blocked us in. I heard him scream, "I got ya, son of a bitch." And then all hell broke loose as Brandon unloaded 9 shots at him. Jordan Sr. almost ran me over as I came out of the door. I jumped into the van as Brandon reloaded the gun. He hung out of the window and fired 9 more shots. They blew out the windows of Jordan's truck. We forced our way past and came out on the main road. He turned left and we went right, but he turned and was coming after us. Brandon kept firing. Jordan wasn't going to back down, though. We could see him with his phone to his ear, calling 911 to report us. I got onto country roads that I knew and shook him off. But then I made a mistake and turned onto a road that went nowhere. In my panic, I came close to running over a guy working there. The result was that no sooner had I turned the van and begun driving out again than he and his pals started chasing us. I couldn't outrun anyone in the van, especially with the weight of its passengers and of Andrea in particular. We packed a bag full of the guns we'd taken and headed into the swamps. Where we were going, I don't know. But there ahead was a farm. I'm a country boy and I know that farm trucks generally have the keys left in the ignition. And I was right. And my luck held even more because, far from chasing or firing at us, the woman of the house stood at the door and waved us farewell. She testified later that she thought I was one of the farm hands. I got the truck as fast as it would go. We got to the highway, proud of our luck, when reality struck. The tank was empty. The truck spluttered as we approached Walmart in Conway South. It had just enough momentum to roll into the parking lot. Brandon forced his way into a blue BMW at gunpoint. Walmart has cameras in its lot, however, and one was pointed at us right now, silently recording us. There was a middle-aged woman behind the wheel. I told her to follow me, but now the gas ran out properly, still in the parking lot. I abandoned the truck and got in the back seat of the BMW. The woman drove off at Brandon's directions, but not fast enough. I took over. She and Brandon got in the back seat, the woman sobbing with fear. "Please, just take the car. If you want it," she kept saying. "Just let me go, I beg you." Her name was Alice Donovan. We found that out as Brandon went through her purse. Behind the wheel, my only thought was to get away before the police set up roadblocks. "Please," Alice kept begging, "let me go. I'm a good person. I'll do whatever you say." We took no notice. We smoked more meth, and Alice too. And then we saw a roadblock. I was working out how to avoid it when I realized it was a school and that he was just directing traffic. I wish now that Alice had leapt out of the car there and then. That sticks in my head a lot. We didn't need her, we had her cards and PIN. Brandon began drawing money out of her account before we set off again and drove into North Carolina. We stopped there to buy fuel and cigarettes for Alice. I came out with those and with sodas, but also tape and a deer hunter's hat. Another surveillance camera watched me go in and come back out to the car. We wanted to tie Alice to a tree as we had Hawkins and as Brandon had Samantha. Our first place was another dead end. I turned, waved an apology to the people who lived there, and pulled into a cemetery a short while later. "Get your clothes off," Brandon ordered her. She undressed, and Brandon and I assaulted her. Sexually. It haunts me that I did that. I knew from my childhood how that felt, and I still don't know why I did it. I have no excuses. We still had to find somewhere to tape Alice to a tree, somewhere wooded and off the road. Brandon saw a sign to a park. We turned at a car wash and followed the road to an area of no houses. There were trees all around. It was getting dark. No one would see us. "I'll come with you," Alice begged, "but please, leave the gun in the car." I watched as Brandon walked her into the wood, still with his gun. He was in there for 20 minutes with rising panic on our part. And then he emerged just ahead of me, paper towels sticking out of his pants. He said he wanted to wash off that it was from raping Alice after he'd taped her to the tree. Tina was washing clothes in the motel we'd taken. I told her about the shootout and about Alice and that the cops had her van. We were leaving, I said, but she had to stay. I gave her several $100s, but she started crying. "Please, Chad, take me with you." "Honey, do that and there's a strong chance Brandon will kill you both. You know that, what he's like." I called later and found the FBI had been there and added us to the America's Most Wanted list. I couldn't go back. I drove into West Virginia and then north towards Canada. I was still driving several hours later, past midnight, the air conditioning on and the sunroof open. We were in the stillness of the night. And then Brandon panicked. I took a 50-pound hammer. "I killed them for us. They seen us." "You mean you killed Samantha as well?" "Yes." He paused. "I strangled them while I raped them." I was speechless. I had a maniac killer next to me. I used a cell phone we'd stolen and called my mom. "How did you get out?" she asked. I skipped the question. "I love you, Mom." "You escaped, didn't you?" I said I had, and she began to cry. "Listen," I said, "it's gonna be okay," and I ended the call. I loaded my pipe and smoked more dope to stay awake. Brandon kept looking at me, still holding his gun, asking me what I was thinking. "What am I thinking?" I said, amazed. "I just can't believe you killed them." "Why? Why did you do it?" "'Cause I didn't want them to get free and call the police." "So why'd you lie to me about it?" "'Cause I knew you'd tell Tina." I had no more to say, but a lot to think about. We drove on in cold silence for half an hour. Maybe more. It was November, the cold night air was blowing down over us, but Brandon was sweating all over. "You realize they'll kill us if they catch us. We'll be better off in Canada, but how do we get across the border? We need passports for that, and then they'd check and we'll be done for. The US border with Canada is the world's longest straight line. You can't build a fence and man every 10 yards of thousands of miles. Minor roads cross unseen from one country in the other. Sure, that's all you need. We could drive through the mountains and find one. But I couldn't forget that I could be next. Crossing the border would be an answer in one sense but a risk in another. Instead, we drove to West Virginia and back to Beth McGuffin. We smoked so much dope that we needed several trips to the Markham Terrace housing project to buy more slabs of crack, followed by the store to buy beer. We told Beth we'd take the girls home and that we'd be back to party. Beth and Brandon were acting like they'd known each other forever. And we were smoking dope when there was a knock at the door. The police? We were convinced of it. This was the end. What was Brandon likely to do? We panicked. Instead, it was two girlfriends of Beth's, one 8 months pregnant. For 20 minutes, all went well, the girls joining us smoking dope. And then came another knock. The girls fled. A guy walked in, shouting, "Where's my girl?" He's not going to rest until he finds her. Brandon pulls his gun and makes sure he sees it. Turns out the pregnant girl is his wife, that he was trying to help her off dope. Brandon wanted to shoot him and take his car. That's Brandon's reaction to everything. This time, Beth persuaded him not to. The man and his wife left and calm returned. Brandon and Beth kept smoking and drinking. We worked our way through close to $9,000 in meth and crack.